Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, you're good-looking because you're always looking for and finding the good. That's why you tuned in consciously and conscientiously to Hug America podcast with your humble host, Barry Shore, the ambassador of joy. No, it's not the ambassador of joy. It's the ambassador of joy. And our co-pilot, our amazing buddy, Neal Foard, America's greatest storyteller.
Good morning, Barry.
Thank you, wonderful Neal. Now, it's interesting because we didn't want to miss a session. We were scheduled, as we always are, and you put it in your phone for the second and fourth Thursday of every week for the rest of your life. So we had a number of people who sent emails or text me, hey, what happened to the show yesterday? There were technical issues. That happens in the world. Everybody knows about technical issues, but we didn't want to miss a time. So we got it back up and running and rescheduled for today. So no one should be without a dose of Hug America podcast, at least every other week for the rest of your life. So we're happy that we're here. Those of you who are watching can see that beautiful smiling face on wonderful Neal, and Barry Shore and his fabulous, what we call the other Canfield shirt, and there's a great story that goes with the Canfield shirt. But for right now, we're going to talk about actually two things in our short time together. And they're, of course, interrelated, intertwined, and juxtaposed. And they are rain and Super Bowl. How they go together, we don't know, but we'll figure something out. We'll bridge that gap and cross it and enjoy it and have all kinds of fun, because that's what we do on Hug America podcast. So let me just begin by starting with rain, R-A-I-N, and tell everybody up front, I'm going to be very open about this. I'm just coming out of the closet and telling everybody I am prejudiced in favor of rain. I really enjoy rain. Rain to me is one of the most loving, gentle, fabulous, growth-oriented, fructifying experiences one could ever have. I love the word fructifying. And of course, I did not grow up in a place where they had monsoon, so leave that aside, because I can hear that could be different. However, rain is just one of the great, if not the greatest blessing that comes from heaven, because it makes everything happen. It is the actual essence of what we call weather, because you have clouds, you have wind, you have water evaporating from the oceans and everything moving around and swirling and coming up and bringing down to the earth this moisture in the form of what we call rain. Every language has its own name for it. But suffice to say that every language understands that rain is a benefit, and without it, there is very little that can be done that is beneficial. As an example, right now I live in Henderson, Nevada, which is outside of Las Vegas. And this is basically a desert. And if it wasn't for water, the place couldn't function. Well, hello, where does water come from? From the sky, from rain. And we have something that a wonderful lake nearby called Lake Mead. When Lake Mead is in its fullness, we'll call it, then that supplies millions and millions of people with water to function, and even more importantly, with agriculture to function, because without agriculture, you don't have food. And Lake Mead was dangerously low for the past couple of years. I mean, dangerously low. So low, in fact, that it was exposing things that had not been seen for decades, such as human bodies and all kinds of things that were being taken out of the lake because it was so low. Thank God, with these recent rains, the lake is filling up again. It's truly, it borders on the magical, the mystical, and the mythical, that you could say, okay, God said, hey, let's put some water down here, baby, so we can get Lake Mead filling up again and bringing benefit to everybody. So I'm just going to tell you again, I'm prejudiced in favor of rain. Now, I'm going to turn over to wonderful Neal, who's experienced a larger amount of rain than I've had, because he's in Southern California, and his rain borders on the T word. What is T? Torrential. Not tarantula, like the black spider, but torrential, which also you can hear just from the words, onomatopoeia. things are never pronounced, oh, a torrential rain. No, it's torrential rain. So with that, wonderful Neal, America's greatest storyteller, so let's see what you can offer up to everybody and see what do we have to talk about. Have a story about rain?
I've got a bunch. So I'll start with this. Barry, you were confessing all the things that rain is good for. And it is funny that in English, the expression is into every life, a little rain must fall, meaning that there's a certain amount of things that you perceive as negative, which is kind of funny against what you're saying, because thank God people's lives have rain falling into them. What the hell? So also another little footnote, which is that Henderson, which is outside of Las Vegas gets the vast bulk of its power from Hoover Dam, which is supplied by Lake Mead. And if that level gets too low, it simply doesn't drive the turbines, and then everything in Vegas goes dark. Can you imagine? So,
No.
yeah, exactly. What? So, thank goodness for rain. Let me just say that there is something marvelous about why you even chose the topic, which is that we have this perception that rain brings on bad, foul moods, like as in Seattle, and people, that the clouds come over.
Wait a minute. I like that. Seattle, bad mood. Oh my gosh, you put them in the same sentence.
I happen to love Seattle, but yeah, they do suffer, unfortunately, from seasonal depression. When it gets very dark and for days on end, it sours the disposition. But rain truly is that it's the alpha and omega of existence on Earth, which is if without water, all life ceases to function. And so what I'd like to suggest is that every time you do have any negativity in your life, if you're going through a rough patch, just do keep in mind that there is often a silver lining. There's often a need for it. I had the experience of having a car that was a 1966 Mustang that I was quote unquote restoring. No, I didn't have any money at the time, and I was only driving this rat infested car because it was all I could afford. Literally, the car had no hood. I was driving around with the engine exposed.
I was going to ask you, by the way, if it was a Mustang convertible. So you just
convertible, yeah, in a way.
It wasn't designed that way, but that's how it was.
Certainly not. But as you can imagine, Barry, it had its share of electrical problems. In fact, you could almost say that the vehicle was haunted. It haunted me. And on the days that I needed it most, when I had to get to a meeting at 8 a.m, and I was in Pasadena and my meeting was in Redondo Beach, naturally it wouldn't start. So this was back in the days of phone books and not smartphones.
Wait a minute. I want everybody to understand we're taking just a brief break. Something called a phone book. So if those of you, and I'm not kidding when I say this, some people may need to do a search for that. So look it up and just understand that there really was a book with phone numbers and names and addresses in it. And it's funny to even think about it because I'm sure some places still have it, but yeah, take a look. So in the days of a phone book, what did you do?
Right. In addition to the phone book listings of your phone, it would also have the yellow pages. And in the yellow pages, you could find businesses. So there I am stranded. My car won't work. I know it's some kind of electrical gremlin. So I start looking for some place to repair it. And as I'm calling these businesses, everybody is, not only are they quoting me some extravagant amount of money to fix it, but they want to charge me an extravagant amount of money to tow me in. And in desperation, I finally came across a very small ad for a place called, it was something like Balkan Auto Repair Garage Business. It was sort of this ludicrous little title. And I thought, well, I'll give them a try. I call them up. And they're very agreeable to a very low price to fix the car. And then I say, now I'm wondering if you could tow me in. And the guy says, sure, I'll send my father. And so next thing you know, there's a 90-year-old man in a tow truck that is missing some very important parts. And I'm pretty sure he's new to tow trucks too. But he is the sunniest, funniest, most adorable guy. He's got this beautiful, brilliant head of white hair, ice cream white. And it's like Elvis. And now he speaks very little English, but the English that he does speak, he is trying to cheer me up because he sees that I'm fuming and furious about this. So he's doing his best to keep me chipper. Now I'm riding, I have to help him hook the car up because, as I say, I'm not sure he even knows how to do it. So the two of us, hook the Mustang to this tow truck. And in the process, my suit gets mangled and it gets grease on it. And now I'm even more furious. But somehow, instead of going apoplectic, he manages to keep me sunny. He's dancing in his seat in the tow truck, and we're listening to some bouzouki music from Albania. And it's I don't know where he's from, but he keeps looking at me and going, "Hey, old man, or young man, old car." So he's trying to teach me this crazy song. We finally get to the garage, and 4 generations of his family go to work on the thing. Now, everybody in the family is super upbeat, except for the woman who runs the place. She's got the same sense of humor as a German razor blade. And she's
You mean double-edged?
Oh, I hadn't thought of that, but she's just, everything about her is, she's looking at you like, you're here to rob the place? What are you, why are you here? What are you doing? I don't like the looks of your suit. It's got grease on it. What kind of man has greasy suit? Okay, so she is humorless. And I'm trying to, because of the older guy, I'm trying to get a rise out of her. Like, I want to make her smile. I'm just infected by his positivity. But nothing. I'm telling her every joke. She's kind of looking up from her paperwork occasionally with this, "Why are you bothering me?" look. And eventually the car gets fixed. I've had no luck cheering this woman up, but eventually the car gets fixed, and they've done a beautiful job, Barry. They've harnessed all the wires, and they've cleaned the engine bay, and it works perfectly. Well, I am just chuffed. I can't wait to get going. So I pull out my checkbook. This was back when you paid with checks. And I look.
By the way, let me put people on pause. For those of you who are under the age of 25, and there are thousands and thousands of you around the world, and I know this from experience because I just did an in-person event where we had over 1,000 people, and I asked people in the audience, those of you who are under the age of 25, how many of you have written a check in the past 3 months? Out of over 1,127 people, Neal, 3 people raised their hand.
Yeah.
Okay, so those of you who don't know what a check is, do a Google on checkbook. Okay, thank you. So you got phone book and checkbook.
Yeah, exactly. So this was back in the 80s. So you have to figure out who you fill it out to. That is, pay to the order of who, and then you fill it in. And I look up, and I'm looking for, who do I make this out to? And right behind the woman, for the first time, I notice a huge sign. I mean, 3 feet by 6 feet, that says no checks. So I look into her eyes, the woman behind the counter. I look into her humorless face, and I'm thinking, am I going to find any mercy there? Well, all she knows is she saw me see the sign, and so now she knows that I know there are no checks. But I'm standing there dumbstruck by, what am I going to do? I have no cash. Okay. In that moment of terror, when I don't know what they're going to do with me, in walks the old guy with his beautiful head of white hair. And in his arms is a little infant with an identical head of hair, but jet black. And the two of them are just peas in a pod. Okay. Now, this little baby is, I don't know how old is old, but couldn't have been more than 4 months, 5 months. The baby and I lock eyes, and the baby gets this expression on his face like, oh, and he looks at me and he lets out this squeal of delight, like he's so pleased to see me. And the old guy suddenly gets very serious, and he goes, "He knows you from before in the other life." And the woman behind the counter goes, "Well, if he knows you, a check's okay." So that was the first time that the gal cracks a smile. And then
accepted a check.
And accepted a check. And then she says, "We're closing for lunch. You hungry?" And I thought, oh, fantastic. So I literally ate lunch with these people. And it was lamb kebabs.
So on that high note, lamb kebabs, taking the check, a smile from the German razor blade, all done by the smile of an infant. We're going to go to a break because we love the sponsors of this show. So we urge you to consider using them, because we wouldn't have them on unless we loved them and vetted them. So we'll be right back with more wonderful Neal Foard and Barry Shore after this brief message. Don't go away.
Any business leader who has stood in front of potential investors can tell you, creating a vivid, compelling vision of the future can be the difference between bankruptcy and billions. If you can move people with words, you can practically will things into existence. Something that seems impossible can be made to seem inevitable. But not with bullet points, with a well-crafted and well-told story. I spent 30 years in advertising, creating stories for giant brands, universities, and governments, and changing people's hearts and minds. And over those years, I accumulated a treasure chest of insights about how to entertain and inspire and move people. And I think I can teach you. Can you think of a tool more powerful than human speech? See how your value changes when you start to master the oldest human art form. What if you could shop at your favorite local stores, swipe your current credit card, and get extra cashback rewards? And what if you could also have donations sent to your favorite cause at no extra cost to you? What if this amazing program was absolutely free and very simple to set up? Well, What If is here. Welcome to Einstein Cares, where your everyday shopping gives you and your favorite cause extra money. It's fast, it's easy, and effortless.
I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain. What a wonderful feeling. We're happy again. Walking down the lane with us. Beautiful refrain, singing in the rain. We were talking about the rain, talking about electrical wires going awry, and then finding hope and joy in lamb kebab. Well, talking about landing in a kebab, we're going to just do a quick switch, because how could you not talk a little bit about the Super Bowl? That's called American football for people around the world. Here happening in the next 48 plus hours in the city called Las Vegas. And of all places in the world to have the Super Bowl, it seems actually the most obvious, you would think, because gambling is part and parcel of American sports these days. And this is the Mecca. Isn't that interesting that you can use the term Mecca for gambling, and Muslims don't get, they should be marching in the streets saying, you're blaspheming. You can't do that. It's not the Mecca, it's the Tel Aviv. It's whatever you want to call it. Anyway, this is the place where jets galore, and I don't mean the New York Jets, are clogging the airways, private jets and public jets, and rooms that used to be $100 a night or $1,000, and girls that used to be $200 or $1,000, and guys and all kinds of stuff happening. And thank God I'm far enough away from it, I can just barely even hear the roar of the grease paint and the smell of the crowd. I purposely transpose those. But I have a Super Bowl story that will take about 5 or 6 minutes. Do you have a Super Bowl story that you want to share, wonderful Neal?
I'd like to just make a point before you go into your story, which is that, as I was saying before, oftentimes things that seem like they're a bad occasion turn into wonderful experiences. And there's always a silver lining. The origin of the Super Bowl, it has to do with the NFL competing against the AFL. The AFL was
interrupt for a moment. Those of you who are challenged with these terms, AFL, NFL, do a quick Google of what Neal's just talking about, and show how rivalry and competition actually came together for the dons of the mafia. We'll call them that. The dons of the mafia of football said, it's better that we work together than apart, and created something beyond their understanding.
The NFL was the NFL, the National Football League, and then they would not grant teams to certain cities, and those cities were furious, so they started their own league, a competitor, the American Football League, which, as you can imagine, sent the NFL into a tizzy. But and up to that point, they called the NFL championship game the championship. And along comes the AFL to rival the NFL. And the NFL is thinking, this is terrible. They're drawing away our customers, only to do just as Barry suggested, which is they get together and say, if we get together, maybe, just maybe, we could make more out of this. And as it happened, the AFL was regarded as an inferior product by the NFL. And in order to prove their point, they created the Super Bowl to humiliate the teams of the AFL, only to discover that, nope, it was a lot closer than you might think. And it wound up becoming the signature event outside of the World Cup and the Olympics, and all because of what the NFL thought was initially a disaster. And now it's bigger than ever.
And that's the genius of putting steer manure on your lawn, making things grow. And I just want to interject because it was it was fascinating. You said, I read a little blurb recently about the history, since you brought it up. It was just in the Wall Street Journal maybe 4 or 5 days ago. And the first Super Bowl was a blowout by the NFL against the AFL teams of the particular team.
Packers Chiefs, I think.
And it was a lopsided game. It was 35-10 or something like that. So the NFL, in a sense, embarrassed the AFL. And the next year, the teams that were playing one of them was the Jets, headed by Joe Namath, who was for the AFL. And I can't remember the NFL quarterbacking team.
Colts, and it was Johnny Unitas.
The NFL people were nervous that if it was another blowout, then this thing called the Super Bowl, nobody's going to watch it anymore because it's just a blowout. Well, what happened, of course, there was a guy named Broadway Joe. Okay, do a Google on that. Joe Namath, he was the hippest person around at the time. Just an amazing character and a half. And he won. And the Jets won. It was, and that was the upset that literally proved the point, as you said, wonderful Neal. And it just kept getting better and better and better, like the Oscars. The Oscars is one of the. We'll have to talk about that another time. But talk about vanity. So it turned out that as history will unfold, that it comes. So I'm going to tell a brief, quick story about the Super Bowl for me, because I think it illustrates a lot of things that people have in their lives. So I had a good friend. We were living in California, Venice Beach. Very interesting fellow, had a checkered background, did all kinds of fascinating things. He was a talent scout. He was a talent himself. He had been in the Ed Sullivan Show several times. Again, another one, go take a Google, Ed Sullivan. He had been on the Ed Sullivan Show. He had been on All in the Family. He wasn't a superstar. He was a B player, but he had stuff. And he married a wonderful woman. They had 6 kids, and just fascinating character. And he was from New York, and he told me personally, one of my friends is so-and-so, who was a famous football player at the time for the New York Giants. And he was coming to my friend's house. And he said, would you like to meet him? I said, hello. So there was a particular Sunday, and the fellow was in town. I didn't have a chance to meet him. I happened to had to go away for that time. Okay, so be it. Happens to be that year, the New York Giants were going to the Super Bowl versus the Denver Broncos. I should have looked up the year again, and then I just realized I don't remember the year. I feel like Joe Biden right now. I don't remember the year. But suffice to say, it was New York Giants versus Denver Broncos. My friend says to me, I'm going to get Super Bowl tickets. Would you like one? No cost. Would you like a ticket to the Super Bowl? I'm going to take my dad, you, another close friend of ours named Fred, and one other person, my friend's son, who was, I think, all of 9 years old at the time, because this probably goes back 30 years maybe. And we're going to rent a limousine. It was being played at the Rose Bowl. And we're going to go in style. And the tickets were, you ready for this, Neal? 50-yard line, 20 rows back.
$80.
Yeah. Today, 8,000 or more. But my point is what he told me he was going to get Super Bowl tickets. Now, I have to tell you, I love my friend. He's a character. I did a lot of stuff with him. He was fun, upbeat, and such like that. But come on, Super Bowl tickets, even then, and no cost because his friend's going to give it to him. Guess what? It all came true. He got Super Bowl tickets. He said, "We're renting a limousine. Here's where we're going." The game was on Sunday, and sure enough, I can tell you, it was one of the great experiences of my life for several reasons. One is because it was a great experience taking a limousine to the Rose Bowl, where obviously thousands and 100,000 people in the stadium, and, lots of parking issues, such like that. But you don't have the same parking issues when you have a limousine bringing you there. It was pre-Uber. For those of you who are challenged, pre-Uber. Yes, there was a world before Uber, and it's much better than having a taxi cab. This was a real limousine. So just like kids go for a prom night and such, you get a limousine taking you. So it was my friend, his dad, who was a character and a half, plus my friend is a character and a half. So you had 3 characters and 2. And myself, Fred, and my friend's 9-year-old son get to the Rose Bowl, get the tickets. We didn't know where we were going to be. We had no idea. It could have been the end zone. Who cares, right? These are tickets to the Super Bowl. And I'm telling you, 50-yard line, 20 rows back. And it was a glorious day in Southern California. Guess who won? I don't remember. I feel like Biden right now. I don't remember. But it didn't matter. It was an experience. So when I now feel, again, I'm removed from this place called the Super Bowl here just 17 miles away in Las Vegas, and the energies of the world are converging here. That's the reason I'm mentioning it, because the energy that's involved in this thing now called the Super Bowl, what number is it, 57, 58, something like that? I mean, there's a lot of them now. So we're in the 50s, and of course you can't even, I don't care how divorced you are from current culture, everybody has to know that there's a person named Mahomes, and there's a team called the San Francisco 49ers who haven't been in a Super Bowl in many, many years, maybe 2 decades. And you have the person named Taylor Swift, who's one of the most famous women in the world, people in the world, and a guy named Travis something, and he's playing in this. So the convergence of energies that are here, that are being poured into Las Vegas. And then I'm going to say it like this, a parabolic mirror. You like that one, Neal? A parabolic mirror reflecting back out into the world, so that the energies coming in are being reflected back out. So you can feel it's like a vortex, like they say about Sedona. Sedona is a place of, great physical, metaphysical vortex. That's how it feels right now. And I have nothing to do with the Super Bowl. I don't even know, other than Patrick Mahomes, I don't even pronounce it correctly, and a guy named Travis, any of the other players. But it doesn't matter. It's the energy. And it all came out of something, like you said, rivalry. The big bosses getting together and recognize that co-opetition is the best way to live in the world. Co-opetition means sometimes you compete, sometimes you cooperate, but it's all for the betterment of everyone. So that's my Super Bowl story. I thought you'd love it. I love it. I think about it every year. And my friend turned 82 yesterday, and I sang happy birthday to him. And it was, look at that big smile. If you're not seeing Neal's smile, you're missing something. So here we are, Hug America podcast with America's greatest storyteller. I urge everybody to sign up for his course, because of course it will be of benefit to you. And go to einsteincares.com, sign up for early access. And what we do in Hug America when we close out our session is we in fact do that. We hug America. So on the count of 3, we're going to give everybody a huge hug. Hug stands for heartfelt, unlimited giving. Are we ready, Neal?
Ready.
1, 2, 3. And our blessing from Neal Foard, America's greatest storyteller, Barry Shore, the ambassador of joy, is go forth, live exuberantly, spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad. Go make a difference.